Okay, today we're going to do imagination. I'm putting my hands together like this because imagination is so amazing. When I think of the fact that we have between our ears the most powerful tool ever known to man, ever known to man, to mankind. It has more power in it than we can ever imagine. So when I think about imagination, I think of, when you were a child and anything was possible. The world was open to you. You felt like you can be anything, do anything, that there were no limitations. That that is where imagination is for me. And so I am what they call a thinker. I am innovative, creative, wake up in my quiet time, and I am a thinker. So I have created this system to help me categorize some of my thoughts so that I don't feel like, number one, I'm going to lose them. Number two, that they will be available to either share with someone else when the time is appropriate or give to someone else because it came through my head, but it wasn't for me to complete the process on it. So uh, let's talk about imagination from the perspective of Napoleon Hill. Napoleon talks about imagination being one of the keys to think and grow rich. And when you think about, don't you love that? When you think, when you think about the power of our imagination and what has already been created, we have to remember that things were created twice, at least twice. They were created in the mind, right? And they were created in the natural. They were created in a vibration or our mind. They were downloaded in our head. We see things that have not yet come to pass, ideas and thoughts. And then we do the work to bring them into reality. And what he says is the imagination is one of the most marvelous, miraculous, inconceivably powerful forces in the world. Our brain, our imagination, our creativity. And then it says, no man can ever avail himself to the forces of our creative imagination and then reject it at the same time. Now, the word that's used is dissipate. And when I think of dissipate, I think of the other day when I was cooking bacon. Okay. And I was distracted, and it was in the air fryer. And the next thing I know is my alarm is going off. So I had to, number one, let them know it wasn't real. But number two, I had to get rid of the smoke that was causing the alarm to go off. I had to do something to clear it out. So as we get older, sometimes we reject or we clear out our imagination in such a way that we don't harness it or value it. Because most people actually have a thought that's $1 million thought at least. I'm gonna say once a day, but let's just once a month. But we just throw it away because we said, well, I need to stay focused on this, or the alibis, the excuses, or life, or whatever it is. So let's talk about it at a different level. Let's talk about the fact of how we can use it to actually move forward in every area of our life. And I think that is the power of imagination. The power of imagination, number one, there's two different types of imagination, at least two that Napoleon talks about. He talks about the creative imagination. He talks about synthetic imagination. He talks about our brain being a receiving and a sending station, as if you were thinking of a radio wave or vibration, and we vibrate and we receive things in our brain, and we send things from our brain, and that is really the power of our imagination and our brain. The key with that is we have to determine, even though we're at what vibration we're going to work at, and what we're able or willing to take in, and what we're sending out. Very important. So let's talk about creative imagination. And because I'm a believer, God created from darkness. So there are some things that were created from what existed, but it became something from someone's imagination. It was a thought that they started in their head, and it's almost like music. Have you seen people that took music and they just created it? They just created this, the notes and the sound, and they explored these things, and it was a place that gives us emotion and feeling, and it is something that sounds wonderful to us with our ears, but they created it. That sound or those words or that song is new to us. Then we have synthetic imagination. And when I think about synthetic imagination, I think of two things that existed, and then bringing together creates something totally different, right? And so one of the things when I think about synthetic imagination, I think of Uber. I think of the Airbnbs, the VRBOs, where it was an Uber, there was taxi, and there were car rentals. And then somebody brought that together in such a way to have this thought of, let's provide this service. And it solved a problem. Very powerful thought. It solved a problem. Now, I don't know if they had a problem and that's where it came from, but let's look at how you took actually homes or renting out a home and renting a hotel, and you brought it together, and now we can rent a place for a week or a day or whatever, and they brought those two together and created this third lane, is what I'm going to call it. So that thought is, what do we see? What problem do we see that we say, I have a solution for that? And then how many people will that solution provide or solve a problem for? And then that's how a person can build a business from synthetic or creative imagination. And it's how many people can you serve or solve their problem and move forward. And I think of it from a business perspective. I think of it from a value added perspective. I think of it from the fact that our mind is here to serve us. So there's social platforms that this has been done in. Think about AI, artificial intelligence. And I know there's a lot of people that have concerns about some of the artificial intelligence. However, I look at it is that all of these things were created as a tool. The question is, how will I utilize, and how do I train other people to value the tool, to understand that they have they have more power than the tool, and to continue to creatively think, and because their brain doesn't want to, needs to be utilized. It's a muscle, it needs to be utilized. Okay? So then when you look at synthetic and creative imagination from the perspective of Napoleon Hill, and thinking about how that can allow us to move forward in every area of our lives, because creative imagination gives birth uh, to an emotional, whether it be art, literature, books created, right? Creative imagination does that. And I am both a creative and I am very analytical. And so the merging of those two used to clash. However, there's benefit, and I've learned how to merge them in a way that adds value to others. So when you think about our creative power, we are creators. When we think a thing, and if we continue to think about that thing, and then we continue to talk about that thing, you'll start seeing it show up in our lives. And that's why it's important for us to have positive mental attitude, for us to transform our minds so that we can be, number one, open to the power of creativity that we have and that we were born with. In addition to that, also looking at the fact that we create the world. Our world is created by our thoughts and the things that we do, our belief system, all of that. And now somebody may look at that and say, I didn't ask for this negative thing over here to happen. No, you didn't. And you didn't deserve it. Maybe, it's not based on you. Maybe something else happened, or someone imposed their rights or whatever on another person. However, we do get a chance to choose what happens moving forward. It's the same thing about being in the space where, and I tell people, I said, life is 10% action, 90% reaction. I can't control the 10%. Life, some things happen, people, situations, all of that, right? However, I do get a chance to take it and filter it through my imagination, my thoughts. I get a chance to deal with that, and I get a chance to repackage it so that it serves me. So that I am empowered through it, and I become a victor, I become victorious in it, and not stay or linger in a potential victim mentality. Because in a victim mentality, that means someone else has my power. But in a victor mentality, that means I'm taking my own mindset, my creative and synthetic imagination. I take my own thoughts and I drive them forward. So those are the things that I would like us to consider regarding that. The thing that I would talk about or bring up now is, I think, creative. When I said earlier, I've learned to take my creative mindset and and me being very left and right brain, and it's doing a harmonious dance. They're mixing together, and it causes me to be in a happy place. I don't feel limited anymore regarding that. It's collaborative. So that's when I think of creative and synthetic imagination. They are collaborative. It's not just having creative or people creating things from scratch. It's then, what do you see in the middle of everything you see that maybe could be re-identified to provide a greater service to others through synthetic imagination. And even how those two dance or support each other as we move forward in everything that we see. And then the reflection for the imagination is to, number one, value it. Value our mind and our imagination. That is critical, because imagination is one of the most powerful forces that evokes deep shifts and changes in our lives and can have a lasting impact on not just you, but other individuals. And then as we move forward, to know that there are no boundaries to your imagination. The only person that can limit us is us. So play, whether it be through journaling, whether it be through sitting down and thinking about what you want your life to be about, or how do you see yourself, and then start reverse engineering it, because you have the power. So the thought-provoking question that I would like to identify is this: is the key is, how will you embrace the emotional power you have? How will you embrace and unleash the full power and potential and leave a lasting legacy for others? How will you do that as you continue to think? Build the power on where you are and where you desire to go. Build the power on embracing the limitless possibilities. How will you impact nations and leave a lasting legacy and live out your legacy on a daily basis?